commitment, and sacrifice. So, and I'm going to be recognizing our boards of directors right now. These are people who have continued to commit their time and resources to make sure that the chamber, which is arguably one of the best chamber in Nigeria, you can correct me if you like, but in my opinion, the Nigerian South African Chamber of Commerce is probably one of the best chamber you have in Nigeria. As our chair in this chamber, we have Mr. Osayaba Giwa Osaje, SCN. I'll appreciate if you can respectfully clap your hands and recognize him. We also have on our board Dr. Inje Jidana. Please celebrate her, though she's not here. Please help me celebrate Mr. Tobi Chukwu Okibo, Director, is also Director. Help me celebrate Dr. Demola Shogone. Please help me celebrate him, please. We also have, as one of our directors, Mr. Uhiz Ehimiage. Please help me celebrate him, please. Now, the person who keeps the money is somebody I normally like to very well celebrate. His name is Zo Omokobe. Please celebrate him, please. He's a treasurer for this chamber. And my Oga, my immediate Oga, who is the executive secretary of this chamber. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please help me celebrate Mr. I.H.4. So, to welcome us to this event this morning, it gives me great pleasure to call on the podium to formally welcome all of us here, ex facto director of the board, Mr. Fulishaw Phillips. Put your hands together as he comes on stage.
Good morning, everybody. And let me start by apologizing profusely for starting this late. Our boss, that is Ike, who is the executive secretary. I'm wearing two hats today, in a way, in the sense that the chairman of the chamber, unfortunately, he can't be here. I used to chair the chamber. I just sit on the board now, and he's asked me to stand in for him. So I'm sort of wearing that hat. But secondly, I think what is probably more interesting is the fact that I think, did you mention who is sponsoring this event? Because apparently we have Mr. Robert Taiwo here, the Managing Director of Phillips Consulting. Phillips Consulting is sponsoring the breakfast. That is literally the second hat that I wear, but then again, he's now my boss because he runs the show, and I do what I'm told from time to time. But yes, I want to thank Phillips Consulting, wearing the hat of the chairman of the chamber, for sponsoring this event. It's something that's done every year, every October. We pride ourselves in doing this, and just to join the queue of those who sponsor breakfast. The topic we have today is one which is very relevant to the country we partner with, South Africa. One of the first things that struck me about South Africa is just the beauty of that country. But having said that, if you search enough in Nigeria, you find that we've got things that are just as good, if not more. But they just learn the art of bringing it out.
Good to see. So if we're going to talk about rethinking tourism, I'll just say that the most common, there are so many definitions, but the most accepted thing that if you leave a city where you stay and go to another place and stay more than 24 hours and less than a year and you are not working, you're a tourist. There is no real rule on knowing if the 15 million people were airport stayovers, if the 15 million people stayed more than a day, but different countries create their own definitions on how they capture their data. It was in 2003 that we had probably the best Minister of Tourism Nigeria has ever had, Ambassador Ogbuewu. He was an ambassador to Greece. So he came with ideas from Greece of how tourism should be done. So he launched the Tourism Master Plan. He launched what they call Abuja Carnival. he started what he called the Harmattan season, that in November, December, we should put all our festivals and events around the same period to be able to bring people to Nigeria. It's the biggest gospel music event in Africa today is Experience. So these are things that we already have. All we need to do is scale it up, enhance it, put a little bit of government power beside it. It goes global. You know a man called Richard Branson, how he turned the Caribbeans into the party areas and the rest, built an airline out of just that. And these are things that I've been discussing with Edi Lawani about how we can turn some locations in Nigeria into party destinations. The most important thing we also have that we can use is religion. Unfortunately, that man is dead. But I didn't like him as a person, but I told people, if I was Minister of Tourism, that would be my number one product. He brought people from everywhere. He filled planes. Namibia's problem in Nigeria was we weren't giving visa to people coming to synagogue, because that was the biggest draw. So religion is a powerful pull in Nigeria. I had an American tour operator who wanted a list of the 5 biggest churches in Nigeria. He had very wealthy Americans who just wanted to visit those churches. The biggest churches in the world are in Nigeria. Then you have this. This brings, all the Brazilian, I was listening to one of these guys yesterday. They said, oh, the FBI is after you. He said, because I believe in the Yoruba Ifa, I have no fear of what the FBI and the CIA, they could kill Malcolm X, they could kill, but I have no fear. And I'm like, this is marketing. These are people marketing we could get all of them to come here. You could do 1 million tourists to these places. Then there's a sect called Tijaniya, right? We know them. The former emir of Kano is the head of Tijaniya. There's this Sheikh Inyas in Senegal, who is the head. And you see most cars will have a sheikh that has a black guy that's Inyas. That is one of the most powerful people in this planet. They move people every year to Abuja when they do their convention. And these are hundreds of thousands of people. These are things that we can exploit as a country. We don't need to invent anything. We just take advantage of what we already have. Nigeria, due to the private sector, has done marginally well in domestic tourism. The most successful in promoting domestic tourism in Africa is Kenya, Kenya, and most of them has been traveling a lot. South Africa, with their short left, has been trying, but this year I think they got some good increase in numbers. But domestic tourism with 200 million people, if we just get 1 million people to travel anywhere in Nigeria in a month, that place will make it, and it will be big time. So I think we should control and help domestic tourism grow in Nigeria.
There are several issues that need to be addressed, and we all know these issues. But then, what are we doing about it? And that's what we're here to discuss today. When we look at the population demographic of Nigeria, we realize that the young people form the biggest group of people in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. And we know that over the next couple of years, over the next few years, the population of young people is going to keep rising steadily. What does that mean? That means that they are eventually going to control the entire economy. So we need to start thinking about who exactly we're building for, why we're building for them, and how would they be sustained.
And the story of Dirty December. In 2016, when we started Mr. Isaac's career, it was the first true independent artist that became a global artist. And we started doing tours across the world. Before 2016, any Nigerian artist who is doing tours across the world is probably performing in nightclubs. Nobody is selling theaters and show-offs. And because we have access to data of people who listen to his music in these cities that we go to, so from London to New York, we're planning shows based on these listeners. And we came back to Lagos in 2017 to try the same experiment. And thanks to Mr. Paul, I saw him, they gave us the landmark to use. And without no sponsor, we pulled off the first music concert. Without any sponsor, we're banking on making money from just strictly tickets. We went on to build this simple website that people could buy tickets from. And then that is what started Dirty December. Mr. Easy literally created the word Dirty December. By 2017, it was successful. We had over 3,000 people. They almost shut us down because we overbooked the hall. 2017, we wanted to change the experience, but there was no location in Lagos that could deliver the experience that we were thinking. In 2017, we went to Ghana, Labadi Beach precisely, to do something called Dirty Rave. And because my assumptions were, everybody follows the music. And it was then we saw what African music would become. And in 2017, all of our friends, everybody followed us to Ghana to do Dirty Rave at Labadi Beach. And that's what started the culture of Dirty December in Ghana.
It is said that one of the problems we have to make this tourism happen, everyone has talked about it, is infrastructure. So if you were to recommend what ways or how are we supposed to go about ensuring that we have the right infrastructure in place so that we can start to attract and be able to tell people that truly Nigeria, starting from Lagos, is the destination that everyone must come to.
Infrastructure, if that's the question, is part of the rethinking and part of the regrouping, part of the re-engineering that we need. And might or not, or you might have heard of the only public-private partnership initiative working with or under the auspices of the Federal Aviation Authority of Nigeria, which is what is coined MMA2 by Courtney and on behalf of Chairman Babalakin. We then became the first. And at some point when I took the reins, I realized you're not the first. That's because there are people coming up behind you. And if you don't re-engineer and rethink the simple things of life, infrastructure is supposed to be a part of us that we don't know exists.
Now, Paul, I'm going to you. You're just like diaspora. You came from the UK to do what you're doing, and it's no wonder you're doing it very well. But I want you to start speaking to standardization, certification, because you're obviously a leader in this. Everyone keeps saying landmark. So what are the standards? What are the things that people should start to look at so that when we do that, we then know that we've ticked the right box and we're ready to go? Please speak to standardization and certification.
I suppose it's just literally experience of where do you go? You go to places where it's simple to get to, right? It's safe when you get there and you have things to do. So all I had to do was try to replicate that, make it simple. Obviously, I can't build the road outside landmark. I can't deal with the airports. There are many things you can't do, but you say, well, when people get here, then let's make sure we keep them here and give them enough things to do. So we have 7 industries there. So the first thing I had to do was populate it. So MIC, which you talked about a lot, it's incredibly important to that. Obviously the beach is important, the restaurants, the cinemas, and the university and the health facilities and stuff. So the idea was put as many things as possible in there, create safety, create security, and try to standardize that. I mean, so far it's been good. It's been successful in some elements. It's not without its strains, and it's certainly not without its challenges. I mean, if I had my life again, I would be the visitor, not the maker.
People think if we're to look at numbers, what are the kind of statistics that will start to drive the kind of sort of inbound visitors that we all desire? Because Ogaikeji talked about the fact that we are giants as we get outbound, but when it comes to inbound, we're dwarfs. We don't want that situation. So please talk to us about the kind of numbers that can start to make us go around there. Yes.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone. So I'll just dive into it. Basically, just like Ogaikeji has elucidated put everything through about how we can domesticate tourism in Nigeria. Nigeria thrives in making things difficult. The simple word is seamlessness. The guys from Edu, the great work they are doing is making things easy on the technology platform. Nigeria prides itself in making everything difficult. Processing immigration, being efficient in service delivery, everything is difficult. The only thing that can, as a low-hanging fruit, that can drive these numbers to Nigeria is by simplifying
the experience and making things easy and seamless. I mean, talking about the airport. If the airport doesn't have to have some grandiose architecture, just make it easy facilitation for people to easily get into the airport and transit out of the airport. I mean, Kotoka Airport is not very, architecture is nothing to write home about when it comes to designs, but I mean, easy facilitation. Go to Rwanda, easy facilitation. In Lagos is difficult, So for me, to drive those numbers is very easy. Simplify things.
Okay.
Make the experience easy. I mean, because this experience starts from home for the passenger or for the tourist. The thinking alone, I mean, if your destination gives me headache, I just want to look for another easy destination. And if you're talking about visa facilitation, which is a core major issue for anywhere you want to travel to, people just, you know what, let me just go to Seychelles. I just land and I just go to, let me just go to Mauritius. Then, I mean, so to answer your question, just simplify the process.
Okay.
So the first thing I'll say, bordering on what Mr. Tony said, is the ease. So I'll go very practical about it because I happen to travel a lot. So locally in Nigeria, I have done 22 states, and internationally I've done 63 countries, just to put things in perspective. And the biggest problems here with travel in Nigeria is the ease. So first off, infrastructure. And then another thing that is always a huge misconception amongst travelers or tourists in Nigeria is the fact that we think everyone knows about these places. It will surprise you up to at least maybe like 60, and I'm being fair. 60% of our population have no idea the amount of beauty in this country, Nigeria. And for me, what opened me up to it was COVID. Because I travel so much that if I don't travel for a while, it's like something is wrong, I need to restart my brain. So I started researching consciously to find if there were any places good enough for me to travel to Nigeria, and it was unbelievable. From that time till now, I've done 22 states.
How do you deal with all this domestic connectivity? How do you move people around Nigeria? And what can you do? You're Akwa Ibom, and Ibom here. They talk about Calabar just next door. What are you doing to make sure that people can now go to Obudu? Because really it doesn't have to be in Akwa Ibom, you could be in Obudu. It's international. So what are you doing as regards domestic connectivity?
Connectivity is an issue, and the last speaker couldn't have emphasized it enough. For us, what we try to do is to see some of the untapped, destinations and see how we can provide access to those destinations. And so as much as possible, a lot of factors affect that. One is capacity. We do not want to raise people's hopes to say we would be able to cover all, the locations we hope to go to without having the right capacity. We have a fleet of 7, and we know when we'll deal with man and machine, sometimes that number drops to 5, sometimes it drops to 6, and so it's disruptive enough when that happens. So you now open up yourself to say, because I have 7 aircraft, I can manage to cover 14 locations. You're just setting yourself up for failure. So first of all, we're trying to see how we can increase capacity. I can tell you for free that the total number of flying, crafts in Nigeria doesn't equal perhaps one airline in other kinds. So we need to increase capacity.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks to everybody for coming out. It's a very, very early morning. I don't have much to say, to be honest. I wrote one word down when I've been sort of listening to all the speakers, and the word I wrote down was inspiring. I think the speakers have been absolutely inspiring, been eclectic, diverse set of speakers, and I think they've given us a really good flavor of tourism in Nigeria and how we can be improved in the future. One thing I would say is when we were thinking of a topic, because we do this every year, we sort of work with the chamber, we sponsor an event, we sort of come up with a theme. When we came up with the theme of tourism, one of the questions that we got that sort of was quite frequently was why tourism? People were saying, there's issues such as fuel subsidy, there's FX, there's bigger problems to talk about. Why tourism? And our thinking was, it's absolutely important. Sometimes you have to look in a direction where nobody is looking, and that's actually where you can sort of generate real change. You know, I'm no expert in tourism, and one of the things you do when you're sort of hosting an event like this, the first thing you do is you kind of Google tourism. And I looked at the definition of tourism for the UN World Tourism Organization, and it was quite interesting, because they said tourism was a cultural, social, and economic phenomenon. And the word that really stuck out to me was actually cultural. Not economic and not social, it was cultural. Last week, a couple of days ago, we were at the NSACC, and one of the sessions I joined was a session entitled One Nation, One Heritage. One Nation, One Heritage, and they talked about the importance of culture and values in building an integrated nation. And I kind of linked it back to this talk of tourism and culture. Because the truth is, and I love to travel, if you go to the United Kingdom, as an example, you'll ask somebody about Buckingham Palace, or you'll ask somebody about the House of Parliament or Big Ben, and they'll talk about it proudly, because it's part of their identity and who they are. You go to Egypt, and it was mentioned, the pyramids of Giza. You go over there and you ask somebody about the pyramids of Giza, and they'll talk about it proudly. It's their identity and who they are. Same thing if you go to Greece, you go to the Parthenon, the ancient city of Athens, it's the same thing. They'll talk about this is who we are, and it speaks to our wisdom, it speaks to our intellect, it speaks to us as an ancient nation and cradle of civilization. And it pulls people together, common identity, commonalities. And I think in a world where we can all agree it's a bit challenging and there's all the strife, if there's instances where you can pull people together in a single identity, with a single sense of belongingness, then these are the things that matter. So I think tourism is important. I think it exceeds and goes beyond the bounds of just the economic intent. I also think that culturally it's important, and I think it can be helping us together as a nation as well. Thank you very much.
I want to especially thank our speakers, the panelists, and the Remix brothers. And I believe this is just the beginning of great things that we begin to experience in this country.